Hi, Josh, to ERP Talks podcast. And I'm very happy that we finally made it.
Yeah, it's been a couple months we've been talking about this. Yeah, so
Yeah,
thanks for having me.
yeah, yeah. You have been busy with Synth 7. So good luck with Synth 7 and good for them that they have you.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
So, the first typical question in ERP Talks podcast, Josh, tell us more about your career journey since you left your school.
Since I left high school or
You can
since
say
college?
no, the college.
Okay, so I went to college in Baltimore, Maryland, and I don't think a lot of people know this, but I studied art and photography in college,
Wow.
and I went to a technical school. So it's essentially like Maryland's tech school. It's called UMBC. I always consider it tech school, but I was in their art scholar program. And the thing that was interesting about UMBC is the art program there, they didn't have painting and drawing and sculpture. We were learning Photoshop and web design and development and Flash. I was really into Flash, which was an application used for making animated web experiences. So like I learned how to code when I was in college. I learned how to build websites well. I'd been doing it since I was in high school. But that I graduated in 2003, and at the time like everything was changing. Like the internet was just becoming a tool that businesses were acquiring and adapting to, but it was still very new. Like it was very common to meet people that didn't have email addresses, and the web, like CSS was a new thing, like PHP was a new thing. The web was very different. And in the early days, I was a temp at a company. So I would go to different businesses and I would work for 3 to 6 months. Sometimes it would be longer. Sometimes it was just a week or two. But it was neat because it gave me exposure. I ended up working in startups. I was like a temp at a couple startups. I worked at Bechtel, which it's like one of the biggest construction companies in the world. They build nuclear plants. I mean, like massive
Wow.
construction company. And I was there for a few months as a on their marketing, design, and communications team. But then I landed eventually at a newspaper in Washington D.C. and I was just going to be there for a week. I came in to replace somebody while they were on vacation, and this person was kind of like the production manager. And I came in, and the place was um, disorganized. Like it wasn't running smoothly at all. So when the week was over, I went to the publisher and I was like, "Look, you got a mess on your hands. Like I can fix this. Like just if you bring me in here and give me a couple months, like I'll turn this into a well-oiled machine." And he took me up on it. And I think that was, I was probably 22 or 23 at the time, and he made me the creative director of the newspaper, which is nuts. Like I should have never had that title, um, but he gave me a shot, right? And I think that's when I realized that I like to solve problems, like processes and getting teams to talk to each other and communicate was something I knew how to do. I always felt like I knew how to get people to work together and work towards goals that I had a vision for. Um, So I was there for a while, a couple years, and then I left and I did freelance work for a while. Like at that point I understood the web, I understood a little bit about business, I understood how projects got done, and I recognized that I had this knowledge about how the internet works, and they were looking for people that could do that. I did that for a while, for a couple years, and then I landed at a civil engineering company. Man, I had so many jobs. I think it must have been at least 20 different places that I worked for. But when I went to the civil engineering company, this company called Kimley Horn. So Kimley Horn, they design like airports and major traffic highways and everything. And I was on the marketing team there, and I was the guy that knew how to build websites and how to, I knew how the web worked, and I knew all the digital technology and everything. So I was like the tech guy on the marketing team. And actually that is where I learned how big business works. That's where I learned how to win big projects and how to efficiently market to other businesses. And I gained a lot that experience. It was a great company, but it wasn't. They had this concept of what were called practice builders there. The practice builders were the top civil engineers that would run big projects. So, if for instance, Detroit's airport, the landing strips, they were responsible for designing the landing strips for Detroit's airports. And there would be one person that was in charge of that entire project. But in addition to them being in charge of the project, they also had to lead the marketing and the sales effort. They had to convince the airport to hire them. They had to go through the presentations. And from my perspective, that was like super attractive. Like being responsible for all of those different divisions of business, it just seemed awesome to me. And when I left, I remember telling them, like, being a practice builder, which was their terminology, like being a practice builder is what I want to do. I'm just not an engineer, so I'm never going to accomplish it here. So I have to leave and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I left there, and that's when I started my digital agency. I went back to the freelance work. I landed a big contract with a large national nonprofit, and then that put me in a position to start hiring some people. My wife and I actually ran that business for a while. So my wife is an artist and a graphic designer, and I knew how to build websites. So she would design the sites and I would build them. And then we started growing out the team, and we were in DC at the time. We eventually moved down to the Virginia Beach area. We opened an office. We had, not really employees, but a lot of contractors that worked with us. And, that's when we got into e-commerce. So at the time we were working with like technologies like Drupal, and I think I was dabbling with WordPress and Shopify at the time, but we knew this platform called Drupal really well. That was like our main system, and we could build sites on there very quickly. We built all these tools. Our lead engineer, this guy Andre, is brilliant. He built all these tools to make the process faster, and we were just winning big contract after big contract. And I was taking everything that I'd learned from that civil engineering company about how to convince a business to hire your services, and I just took it and applied it to what we were doing in that web agency. So I was using their methodology to sell these big web projects. And because it was super professional and I knew how to do the presentations and I knew how to sell the team, we were closing these large contracts, left and right, which is great. When we got into e-commerce, I was at a networking event, and in the town of Norfolk, which is near Virginia Beach. Norfolk is a small city in Virginia. It's a gem, like it's a wonderful little city. But there's an ERP company that used to be there. It's not there anymore, but it was an open source ERP company, and called Extupel. And when I was at that event, I met the CEO, and I was telling him how we build these e-commerce systems using Drupal. And come to find out, they use Drupal for their website, and they're an open source ERP. Drupal is an open source application. So we had a lot to talk about. And he's the one that tipped me off on the fact that, in the ERP space, which is ERP is back office systems are a requirement for any business as they grow. But ERP systems do not integrate with e-commerce systems at all. And at that time, if you were going to build an integration, this is around 2011, 2012, if you were going to integrate the two systems, you had to either build a custom integration. I don't even think iPasses were available at that time. So there's businesses all over the country that had ERPs, but eventually they're going to have to sell online, and somebody is going to have to start building tools to get the ERP and the e-commerce platforms integrated. So we spent the next year building out an integration between their ERP and Drupal, and we got it to the point that we had a seamless real-time integration. Extupel was like a manufacturer's ERP. And yeah, we spent a year building that together. We got it to the point that we could demo it. It was really, it was a little bit more than a prototype, but we could demonstrate it. And then we went to a conference, presented it, did a demo, very thorough. This is how you sync products. This is how you sync orders. If you have to handle a return, if, all these different
scenarios,
points of the process. And as soon as that presentation was over, there was literally a single file line of people that wanted to talk to us.
Wow.
And we were talking to people for an hour and 15 minutes after that. And like the demand, it became obvious. Like, this is a hole in the market. Like, nobody is, figuring this out. Like, you could go to systems like NetSuite, but NetSuite, they were their own e-commerce platform with ERP capabilities. And NetSuite wasn't as flexible as something like Drupal. So, and you're looking at like a, $500,000 implementation, maybe $1 million implementation. Like, small mid-market businesses, they couldn't afford that. So we found this hole in the market, and then we were set on fixing that problem. So after the conference, we go back. I'm at the office. I get a phone call from that guy from Extupel, and he's like, "Why don't we go have coffee and catch up?" And one thing led to another, multiple conversations. Our digital agency got acquired by Extupel, and then the whole team just moved in. We basically got tucked in to Extupel. We became their internal digital agency for building out websites for all those Extupel customers and future customers. So that prototype that we built, we turned it into an actual product. And I guess I was there for almost 5 years, just building that product and selling it and implementing it. We worked with, small businesses that sold electrical supplies and plumbing supplies. We worked with multi-billion-dollar businesses that sold, all natural supplements and with brands that you would see at the grocery store today, like massive brands that were relying on this open source solution. And that was my crash course on ERP. So like starting 2011, 2012, ERP was brand new to me. I remember when I first met the guy, I remember being at the office Googling ERP so I could understand what it was that he was even talking about. Like, I knew the acronym stood for Enterprise Resource Planning, but I didn't know the full depth of what that meant. So anyway, I was at Extupel for 5 years. Unfortunately, their leadership there were health problems, and that led to things changing. And eventually, just out of the blue, I got a phone call from a recruiter one morning. It was actually a LinkedIn. You know how you get the LinkedIn messages all the time, recruiters are trying to hire you, or you're interested in opportunity, whatever it was. This guy's message was like way more authentic, and something told me to take this seriously. And it turned out he was recruiting for Acumatica. Wow. And there was a whole story behind that. But I ended up talking to him, and then that's when I moved over to Acumatica. And at that time, that was in 2018. So Acumatica was just getting, they were getting market exposure. They had a strong distribution solution, strong accounting system. They had a partner in the manufacturing space, and commerce was the next area they wanted to go into. And the fact that I had all this experience building integrations between ERP and the e-commerce systems, it was a good fit. That was a totally new experience, because Acumatica was like, they weren't a startup any longer. Like, they had matured out of the startup phase, but they were still, they weren't established. They weren't Microsoft. You know what I mean? It's not like they didn't have everything figured out. They were still trying to figure things out. But the people there, I was so intimidated. Like, the people, they're just absolutely brilliant people that I was working with. And many of them had big business experience. And, when I came in, I was just fortunate enough. I was one of the first product managers that wasn't one of the original founders or wasn't one of the original executives. And because of that, I just got thrown right into the mix very early, and I got exposure to everything. And it took me a while to kind of gain everybody's trust, but once I did, I was pulled into everything. And because I knew commerce well, I built strong relationships with the partners. I could help them close deals because I knew exactly what the customers' challenges were, and things took off pretty quick there. And then, of course, we built our native integrations with BigCommerce and Shopify and eventually Amazon. And I was like so proud of what we accomplished. Like, those integrations were outstanding. We worked with great customers. The team was awesome. Like, so many great things. I guess that's where, running the digital agency, I was kind of winging it, really. but at Acumatica, I became much more like metrics focused and um, methodical about how to manage team members and how to manage timelines and how to market solutions and how to think about the exact challenges that the market has and prioritize what we should build and where we should invest and so on. So I gained a lot there. And the people that I got to work with were just phenomenal. Learned a ton from them. So then uh, I was there for almost 6 years. And then recently, like you mentioned, I, I left Acumatica and I joined Sen7. That was 93 days ago. So I just passed my 90-day mark at Sen7.
Yeah.
And Sen7 is also, and it's right, it's basically a light ERP. It has everything that an ERP has except for the embedded accounting. It has some accounting features, but most customers integrate it with QuickBooks or Xero, but it has everything else.
Yeah.
And
Sure, we will go deep with Sin 7, but this is unbelievable journey. Yeah. Uh, you have so much experience, Josh, and it's really an honor that I sit with you today and do this podcast with you. I believe that you are one of the people. When I met you in Acumatica Summit, I don't know who are you, but just I sit down. I don't know what should I do in the summit. There's a lot of workshops. I went there, and I remember the session that you have been doing, and I felt like, oh my God, I can understand literally everything you're saying. And I have a belief if someone understands something, he can discuss it to anyone, even to a child.
Mhm.
So I felt like this guy knows what he's doing. He knows well what he's doing. So going back to
That's really
moving,
kind.
yeah, thank you. But this is the truth. So going back to your company. So you mentioned that you have been working for this construction company, which
Mhm.
motivates you to open your own company. But
Mhm.
and then you mentioned about the acquisition. But there's something here. You said that X Tuple it's a manufacturing ERP.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I understand for sure that maybe the manufacturing ERP or the manufacturers maybe they need e-commerce if they are selling, as you mentioned, electrician things and all that stuff. But it's weird for me to find like a solution, an ERP solution in the manufacturing, focusing and like focus more on the e-commerce.
Mm.
So how this happen? Like
Oh.
it's yeah.
Yeah, um, I think what you're referencing is the B2B e-commerce aspects because that's what it was. All these manufacturers were selling, but they were
Yeah.
selling to other businesses. So
Yeah.
all the B2B challenges that you face, the customer specific pricing and the customer groups and the multi-location and producing orders that have multiple shipping dates. Like you submit one order and
Hmm.
ship these items this month and ship those items the next month. All of those challenges we were hit with, and
Okay.
because Drupal was open source, and because I mean, we worked in Extuple, but it was open source too. We could literally flex those systems into doing whatever we needed them to do, and that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's good if you can build something and people use it the way that you want it. When it's open source, though, everybody typically wants you to mold it to their exact
Mm.
workflows, and
Yeah.
that's a challenge. But yeah, that
Yeah.
it was. I mean, I was in the deep end. It's that B2B e-commerce is multiples in complexity compared to direct to consumer B2C
Mhm.
e-commerce.
Yeah. So moving from your own company to work as an employee.
Hmm.
So what was like the challenges for this shift?
I mean, the first thing is it took an emotional toll. Like it it's actually surprised me when it happened, but there's like an emotional reaction you have from having something that you feel like is your baby, you know, and
Yeah.
it's like you gave that up or you gave it to somebody else or you abandoned it. And because we had plans and dreams of where that could go and what we could accomplish, and it's not like I set out to do this thing um, around the ERP space. Like that wasn't part of my original dream. But what it was, my wife and I at the time, we had a kid on the way.
Mm.
um, I was working these really long hours and weeks, and my wife was super tolerant and supportive when I was doing that. But then I knew, like, if we're gonna have a kid here, like, I can't be working like this. I can't be traveling like this, and that's just not gonna work. So the timing, everything just lined up. This opportunity presented itself, and it was that was a big motivator for making that change. And then when we got into the business, I was not accustomed to getting approvals on things. So like, the first month or two, I remember I was calling the shots, and now I had somebody questioning all the shots I was calling. And yeah, that was an adjustment too. It's not that it was a bad thing, but it took some adjusting.
Yeah. So in Xtuple, so you moved with your like digital marketing agency, and you
Mhm.
also have an experience with the e-commerce. You built
Mhm.
some integration with this open source ERP,
Mhm.
and you spent 5 years there. So how the product that you built evolved through those 5 years? Like when you left and took the decision to leave, where you have been?
Okay, so the evolve, I mean, it went from an idea and something you could implement one off for a customer to becoming a true product. Like
Yeah.
by the time we were done, we essentially had what we called a distribution of Drupal. So basically, we forked Drupal and we made it our own version, and it was a really advanced version. Like at that time, Andre, that engineer that I mentioned, he had it set up so he could deploy everything through the terminal. So he had instructions for people. If a customer came to us and wanted it up and running, we could have an instance up and running and connected to their ERP in an afternoon, and data was already syncing. So like productizing the solution was what that 5 years was focused on. But like I said, when by the time I left, there were other challenges that kind of interrupted that business, and like I said, that business doesn't exist anymore. Eventually, it got acquired, and
Oh, wow.
things kind of, unfortunately, things kind of fell apart. But
Mm.
um, yeah, it was a good experience.
Yeah, very good. Very, very good experience because when you build something, when you build it and you know the ins and outs, you know the challenges. So when you went to Acumatica, and this is the
Hmm.
part that we will move to Acumatica, you are moving at a point that you know a lot in this. So when
Hmm.
you moved to Acumatica, you started building also something from scratch, or they have something and you started like upgrading it.
So Acumatica didn't have anything. At that time, there was a partner who had built an integration between Magento and Acumatica, and they essentially proved the concept. That
Yeah,
there was a market out there that wanted to buy an e-commerce system integrated with an ERP, but they were working with Magento, and Magento was another open source application. And what they and the other partners were finding is that ERP people are not e-commerce people. So, whenever you're building on an ERP, it's very accounting focused. It's very black
yeah,
and white, and it's procedural, and there's workflows, and everything's exact. Whenever you're working on an e-commerce system, nothing is exact. You could talk to two businesses that are using the same application, but they're going to use them in two totally different ways. You're thinking about things like user experience and design, and how the customer feels when they land on these pages. And those ERP partners, that was not the language that they spoke in. And the challenge was with that open source application, it was so flexible that customers just asked for the world, and it wasn't sustainable. So one of the first things we wanted to do, like, let's find a SaaS e-commerce application that has a strong API. We can build an integration with them, and then at least that SaaS application will have boundaries. It'll kind of keep people in those boundaries, and it won't be as crazy as the open source application. So that's when we built the relationship with BigCommerce, and we started building integrations with them, and that, I mean, it worked. That worked really well, actually.
so the retail product in Acumatica, when someone will like buy this edition, the retail, they will find the big commerce integrated automatically. They don't need to do this. It's integrated. You just put your products and everything is fine. Is that right?
You essentially. So the only thing you would have to do, I mean, there were definitely steps. So you'd have your ERP, you would have the big commerce instance, and eventually we accomplished same thing with Shopify. You would have to establish the connection between the two. There's usually just API keys that would get dropped in place that would establish a connection. And then there were a few pages of configurations, like whenever a customer is created, what customer class do you want to assign to? Whenever you're sending out products, do you have custom fields that you need to send? Whenever you're bringing orders in, are you simply bringing orders in, or are you also exporting orders that have been created inside the ERP? Like, you have to do all those configurations. What are you using for payments? How are you going to handle shipping? It got to the point where myself and my team, we could set those things up in 15 minutes, especially with the demo instances. And then you could get data syncing back and forth.
So you do this inside Acumatica. You go in the
Yeah.
configuration inside Acumatica and you do those configurations based on what the customer needs, and you start and go.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, it
So
was cool.
yeah, so based on your opinion, I know that you worked with many e-commerce platforms, and I heard a lot that WooCommerce is not the best. If you like, do you prefer any of them? Like, there's one of them that you love more, or you see that it's a good fit for any company?
I mean, they all have advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it really comes down to what your needs are. But I would say, I always tell people, if my sister came to me and said, I'm starting a business, I'm going to sell products online, who should I use? I'm 90% sure going to recommend Shopify. Like,
Okay.
especially now. Shopify has they have a very strong direct-to-consumer application. They have a very strong POS. They have a very strong B2C application. And now they have a very strong B2B solution. Now, their B2B solution, they've continued to work on it. They've been working on it since 2020 or 2021. But it's powerful.
Okay.
And if I
Shopify.
have to guess, they're pretty well anchored in the market now. I mean, it's a reliable choice.
Perfect. So this is a question that I believe that everyone want to know, because for us you are like the golden boy in Acumatica. So what led
I
you
was.
to
That's funny.
yeah, what led you to your decision to leave?
Sorry about that. Okay, so first, it was not an easy decision. It was
Yeah.
it was something that I was mulling over for months. And at the end of the day, okay, my favorite thing in the world, like, set work aside, this isn't even about business. My favorite thing in the world is when somebody comes to me and they say, I have an idea for something, whatever it is. They have an idea for a product, or they have an idea for a web app, or they have an idea for a business that they're going to build, or whatever it may be. My favorite thing in the world is listening to that person explain that idea, the person that values that idea well enough to give them money for it, how they're going to find those people that would give them money, and then lay out a plan to get from that idea clear through they're profitable, right? And the businesses that are in that phase, most of them have not surpassed the $10 million mark or the $25 million mark in annual revenue. Most of them are small businesses, and they're still trying to figure things out. And they're like really tenacious people. They're like, they might not even have a background in what they're doing. They just believe in what they're doing, and they're like figuring it out as they go, right? I love working with people like that. And what I found is, in the e-commerce world, all of those people and their business, they haven't reached a point where an ERP like Acumatica or NetSuite or Business One or anything, it doesn't quite make sense to them yet. And I learned, it was a painful lesson, but I learned that they're actually completely happy with a solution like QuickBooks and a strong back office solution, right? Like they can't be in spreadsheets. They can't rely on Google Sheets. They can't hack a bunch of applications together. They need something. But they're totally fine working with a small business accounting system like QuickBooks. Actually, QuickBooks has like their enterprise suite that they're just recently released, and they have some advanced capabilities. So I started to not only believe that belief came through experience because I kept meeting all of these direct-to-consumer brands who I loved working with, but they were not in a position where what I was working on was what they needed, and I wanted to go where they were. The other thing is like when you're working in like those large ERPs, like at Acumatica we had 2 releases a year, right?
Yeah.
And 2 releases a year to a digital native entrepreneur is insane. They need features next week, not in 6 months. And what I came to find out is that there's strong back office systems out there that have bi-weekly releases and monthly releases. They're keeping pace with all the digital native e-commerce applications. And yeah, that was a game that I wanted to jump into.
Okay. This is a surprise for me.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, but I really trust you and I really believe in you. So good luck with your new position, and I hope that you found what you're looking for. It's so if you told me like I'm not happy, like I feel like the environment to change, but when you have something like that, you're talking in a something super important.
Yeah,
You're talking about the idea of the ERP.
yeah,
Hey, the people only need QuickBooks and some features, and we can give them that, and they don't have to pay thousands of dollars. And because I am now focusing more on the sales and the marketing, I can see that. I will tell you something funny. I went to someone that have QuickBooks
mm-hmm.
trying to demonstrate SAP Business One. So before I start the demo, he asked me 2 questions. He told me, "Do you have? Can I take a photo for any expense and upload it to SAP?" And SAP marked this as an expense, posted as an expense. I said, "You can, but you will need an add-on." So he said, "QuickBooks is doing that. Thank you."
Yeah,
I felt like, oh my god, QuickBooks is doing it, and QuickBooks is doing a great job.
yeah,
I can see
yeah,
that QuickBooks is doing a great job. And as you mentioned, people need something, especially now with the AI and all those new features. People need a faster upgrades and releases. So maybe we should work with QuickBooks now.
yeah, yeah. You should. Well, I would say test the market. So that you brought up AI. That was another piece. Like from my perspective, AI. From my perspective, AI is going to have an impact on the market that is comparable to how the internet itself impacted the market. So like
Mm,
right now, AI it's like the late 90s, and in the next couple years, like less than half the market even has an email address at this moment. But there's going to come a day when you can't exist without this new technology. And that I wanted to get my hands deep into artificial intelligence and machine learning and neural networks, and I wanted to understand how this technology was going to impact the e-commerce world. And um, I wanted to, yeah, that's another big piece of it. I wanted to build tools with this new technology. Like it's insanely exciting, and
yeah.
it's so new that the creators of AI, like I've heard interviews with Sam Altman where he talks about the fact that he and the rest of his team have no idea where this is going. They have no idea what's possible. They don't
Oh
know
my
what
god.
people are going to do with the technology. We're in that stage right now, and I wanted to participate. And
Mm,
it's not to say that Acumatica won't participate. I know there were conversations about it, um, but I wanted to jump in. I was impatient. Let's say
yeah.
that I was impatient.
So, is there any like advice, or is there any like specific platforms that we should like take a look on about the AI? Do you have something that you can like share with us?
Yeah, I mean, the best thing to do is to, at least what I've been doing, is I've been reading every book I can get my hands on. So I'm reading a book right now called Co-Intelligence. It was written by Ethan Mullick, who is a professor at Wharton, and um, he's been studying AI and how businesses are adapting to this new tool, how they're using it, and it's fascinating. I saw him give a talk at a conference. It was outstanding. It was an outstanding lecture, and now I've been watching his videos on YouTube and obviously reading his book and so on. So like he does a really good job of laying the foundation and giving introductions to all the trailheads that you could go down, right? And depending on what your interests are, I have to assume you would find your trailhead in that resource or others. The other thing too is just like for me, I like long form podcast interviews. So like I've listened to a dozen or so of Sam Altman's um, interviews, and Ilya, I can't remember his last name, but there's a famous engineer in the space named Ilya,
Yeah.
um, who has really, I mean, he's brilliant, really interesting insights on what's possible. And then the other thing I would say is, there's so many different models and LLMs that are in the market, but ChatGPT is clearly ahead of the curve. Like all these different models have, like anything else, they have advantages and disadvantages. But I'm sorry, should turn
Don't
my
worry.
phone off. But when you look at the metrics and feedback that they're receiving with ChatGPT, especially it's just phenomenal results. Like they're to the point now where the systems are showing the capabilities of PhD doctors and lawyers, and they're amazing. Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
fascinating.
The engineer called Ilya Sutskever.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he is the co-founder and chief scientist of OpenAI. Oh
Yeah,
my, yeah.
yeah.
So thank you for that. For sure, I will try to take a look about that. It's important. Who told me that also in Acumatica? Carl Lewis.
Mhm.
Carl Lewis said that it's like the cryptocurrency of this age, the AI. So he told me if someone can invest now, they will make a lot
Mhm.
of money later. So AI. So I believe we will come to the AI maybe and other two questions because I have more to ask you about the AI regarding the e-commerce. But now you left Acumatica and moved to Sin7. So two
Mhm.
questions here. What Sin7 are doing, what this company are doing, and what you are currently working on now at Sin7.
Okay, so Sin7, like I said before, it's essentially a light ERP. So they're known as an inventory management system, which, in my first few months there, I've had conversations with the marketing team about the fact that it's it's accurate. We have an inventory management system, but the platform does so much more than inventory management. We have a CRM, order fulfillment, reverse logistics and returns management, vendor management, manufacturing. Like the system is very large, very
Mm.
wide. Plus they have native integrations to um, it's dozens of e-commerce platforms, dozens of marketplaces, plus there's EDI integration capability.
Wow.
So it's literally a back office solution that is built specifically for product sellers who are selling through modern channels. So they're selling on e-commerce marketplaces, EDI, they're B2B and D2C. They're Sen7 has a POS, they have their own B2B portal. So
Wow.
it's a much more significant application than the brand is known for. And so that's a little bit about what they do. And then we have sellers that are on all the Amazon, Walmart, Shopify, WooCommerce, Magento, BigCommerce. You just go through the list. People are selling on everything, and they're global. They a huge customer base in Australia, New Zealand, um, in South Africa, in Europe, and in North America.
So Sin7, it's an ERP. That way it's an ERP. So how much it costs? Is it like super expensive
It
or
starts at 350 a month. So
okay.
it's their entry level plan is around 350 a month, and then there's a tiered system based on number of transactions, number of users,
Okay.
and the add-ons that you need. Um, I don't want to dive too much into
Yeah,
the
yeah.
numbers, but when you take it, if you take a average customer's annual contract and you compare it to the average contract of a, you know, what do we call them? They're not legacy ERPs, but Acumatica and NetSuite and the others, they're in the modern ERP
Yeah.
space, but it's 10 times as much,
Oh
just
my God.
easily. Yeah, so for
So,
10% of the cost, but it has damn near the same capabilities.
mm, okay. And they have
Yeah, with
point
QuickBooks,
of sale
you're,
also.
yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, yeah, you go, and there's new features every month. So significant team, like we're super dedicated to support. That was one of the things when I came in. There, there were challenges around support because we had some people leave and everything. That was something that we dove on top of immediately. So like we're really committed to customer support, very customer centric brand. We have team members all around the world. So it's not, it's 24/7 somebody's working on something.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, it's like 10% the cost of these
So
larger known ERPs.
you said QuickBooks, so it doesn't have like their own accounting system. They integrated with.
So Sen7 has a general ledger and it has sub accounts, but I think I read 70 to 80% of our customers are integrated with QuickBooks. So they're
Gotcha.
using
Yeah.
QuickBooks for accounting.
Okay. Okay. So for Sen7 also, I have a question here. Do you guys also have like partners like Acumatica? Do you have like VAR
Hmm.
value added resellers? So is there like a partnership program that people can assign for it, and you will? Can you tell us more about that if you have any
Yeah.
idea about?
So the quick answer is yes. So there's a
Yeah.
partnership program. We have hundreds of partners that work with Sen7. Some of which have been working with us for many years, and those partners that we have, they range from small businesses, small teams of, let's say, 4 people that they have a specialty in accounting or a specialty in manufacturing or inventory management. And then we also have your typical VAR that has dozens of people on the team, and they work on very large scale projects or they have many clients. So it is similar to, it's comparable to the ecosystem that you and I knew at the Acumatica space.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So
if you were interested in becoming a partner, you can go to Sen7's site. There's calls to action there. You can sign up and jump on the phone with a team member to learn.
perfect, perfect. So when you talk about the EDI, so
Hmm.
you guys like you have your own EDI or you integrated with like TrueCommerce or something, or you have your own EDI?
Yeah. So there's EDI integration capabilities. And then we also have partnerships with SPS Commerce, um, a platform called Crystal. Have you ever heard of Crystal?
No.
So Crystal, you should check out. It's
Yeah.
a very modern EDI integration platform, and yeah, they serve some of our customers. Obviously, SPS is outstanding as well. Like, I mean, they're probably the most popular brand in the EDI space. Great customer service and everything. And then also Pipe 17, if you're familiar with Pipe 17, they're now offering EDI capabilities for customers also.
Okay. So sounds good, and good luck with
Are you
Sense 7.
writing all this down? Do you want me to introduce you to the partnership team? Yeah.
I will definitely do that. I will check it out. I told you I trust you, and I believe if you are in a place, it's a good place. So let's go back to the AI, but the AI and the e-commerce. So everyone was talking about the AI and the chatbots that you can like embedded in the ERP.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
for me, this makes sense. Like you can embed the chatbot in the ERP and ask them, give me the last 5 orders, 5 sales orders, give me the invoices for this customer. That makes sense.
Mhm.
But in your opinion, how can the AI, like, how can people benefit from the AI and the e-commerce,
So,
not the
so
ERP?
I'll give you an exact example.
Yeah.
So, a couple months ago, Sen7, we acquired a company called Inventoro. Okay. And we've now recently embedded Inventoro into Sen7. We've made it a feature inside of Sen7, and we've released it as Foresight AI. Okay.
Okay.
And this first rollout was focused on inventory forecasting and replenishments.
Okay.
So imagine you're a small business, you're a small e-commerce shop. You have maybe you have 10 people at your company, right? And you're doing, let's say, 10 to 15 million dollars a year in revenue, and you just finished the holiday season and you're planning your inventory planning for the upcoming year. It's like inventory planning is like stock trading. If you're going to plan this, in some cases, $1 million investment, multi-million dollar investment, like you have to understand the market, you have to understand your own history, you have to make assumptions about the sales that are going to happen, you have to understand, which of your products are doing well, like which products are overstocked, make sure not to make that mistake again, which products had stockouts this holiday season, make sure not to make that mistake again. And usually the person who's responsible for this job, they're equally an artist and a scientist, where they have to think about all these different
Yeah.
aspects, right? So Foresight AI, and this isn't a sales pitch, I'm just telling you what we built into the system. But Foresight AI, it actually looks at your history of transactions, and it looks at your inventory levels. It looks for the items that have been stocked out. It looks for the items that are overstocked. And number one, it'll serve up to you how much cash flow do you have tied up in overstock? How much money did you lose because of your stockouts in the last couple months?
Yeah.
And then there's what we call a smart reorder feature, which will analyze all this information. It runs it through multiple algorithms that are based on scientific papers on the best methodologies for inventory replenishment. And then it produces multiple purchase orders for you with recommendations about what you should buy and why. And then those purchase orders are there for you. You can make your adjustments, or you can delete them if you want, or you could just click a button and submit all the purchase orders out to your vendors. So that's an example of how artificial intelligence, like that is the capability of a person. Like, you could go to Duke and get a degree in operations management, and then you could become a supply chain expert for inventory replenishments. Or you could use a tool like this to help you make decisions. And when you're a small business, you have 10 people on the team, it's typically, a very entrepreneurial person that's making big guesses. You don't have the money to hire that PhD from Duke. So having a tool like this, greatly beneficial.
This is awesome. I really want to see this. Do you guys have any videos or like do you have anything that shows us any demo,
Yeah,
anything like
so if you go to send7.com, there's a whole page about Foresight AI,
that?
and
Okay.
I know the team is making demos. I don't know if they're published today, but I would imagine that they're available. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
please.
there's plenty of those kinds of videos out.
Yeah, if there's
Um,
any videos, I want to see this so much.
okay,
Yeah,
I'll send you some videos.
thank you. Thank you. And this is very, very beneficial, especially for small businesses. Oh my God. Oh my
Yeah,
God. This is
it's
amazing.
like the number one pain point that small e-commerce businesses
Yeah.
have. Yeah.
Yeah.
The I went to back in March, I went to Shop Talk, and Shop Talk's this big conference. It's like an e-commerce conference that happens every year. And they have this cool feature where you can do one-on-one meetings, like 15. It's kind of like one of those um, lightning round dating sessions where you
Yeah.
sit
Yeah.
with somebody for 5 minutes and then you move on to the next. Well, I did that, and over a course of 2 days, I met like 30 companies or something. 25 to 30
Oh
companies.
my God.
And the topic that came up more than anything else was inventory replenishments. We need a tool that helps us with inventory forecasting and replenishments. And yeah, this solves that problem.
Yeah, this is amazing. This is really amazing. I will check out the website, and also I'm waiting for the videos. So I know that you don't have much time, but I have 3 questions in my bucket, the last 3 questions. So the first one, I need you to give advice to the business owners who are in the process of choosing an ERP for their business. What should they do before they took the decision and choose even Sen7, Acumatica,
Sure.
SAP, or QuickBooks?
Yeah. Okay, so a completely objective answer, because I have no idea. Like, if somebody just comes up and asks which ERP should I choose, There's no
Yeah.
way that you can answer that question honestly without some level of discovery, right?
Okay.
And one of the, after years of doing this, I've talked with literally hundreds of business owners, and I would say the common mistake that I would see business owners making is that they knew they needed something, but they
Yeah.
didn't know why they needed it. They didn't think through their own workflows. They didn't think through what their expectations were. Like, what are the exact challenges that you're trying to solve? Or how do your operations function today? And which of those operations can you live without? And which ones do you absolutely need to keep? So the best thing you can do is just block off time on your calendar, sit down with all of your team leads, and get them to articulate to you how they operate. And once you have that documented, then it's much easier for you to make a decision, because then you can go in to the meetings with these ERP companies and you can say, this is how my operations team functions. This is the way that they do things. These are the challenges that they face. These are the kinds of hurdles that they have to cross. Does your system support
Mm,
these use cases?
yeah. But everyone in the demo, not everyone. So Carlos is not doing that for sure. He told me he's not doing. But a lot of salespeople are selling their stuff. So how also the business owners make sure that? So do you think like they should like see many demos, many solutions? Because no one will say. Everyone will say, "I can fix everything for you."
Get them to show you. So that's the one thing
Mm,
I've always said. So
yeah.
like even when I was at Acumatica, um, people would come with these crazy use cases. And the best thing that we could do, and it's not something you can do all the time, but the best thing you could do is set up a demo environment where you briefly show the answer to their question. So there's one particular ERP that is known for telling people what they want to hear, and once the contract is signed, the customers realize that what they were told isn't 100% true. That was always my feedback to businesses that were on the hunt. It's like, yes, people can verbally tell you things, but until you actually see it,
Yeah.
you want to see at least 75% of it. And
Mm,
maybe they can fill that other 25% with add-ons or modifications or advanced configurations or whatever. But that's not something you want to learn after the contract is signed.
yeah. This is awesome. 100% agree with you on that. So the next question, advice also. If you like have a time machine and you can go back in time, what advice would you give to your younger self?
um, just one thing, huh? I can think of a few things. Okay, so related to this topic, related to business.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Not
one
not
one
business.
thing.
You can say anything. Not even in business.
Um,
It doesn't matter.
well, so any effort, um, any idea that you have that you're passionate about bringing to life is going to you have to love that idea enough that you're willing to commit 20 years to it. So like anybody that tells you that, I mean, you can go to YouTube and find plenty of videos that'll tell you to follow your passion and you can make passive income, and you can bring this to life and be a millionaire in 2 years, and some people pull that off, right? Good for them. But the fact of the matter is, like, ultimately what you want more than anything is you want to spend your days focused on something that you love so much that you don't think that you're working, right?
Mm,
And
yeah.
when you find that thing and you've figured out that there is a market that sees value in that thing, and you're able to consume some value from that market for that thing,
Mm,
you have to be willing to stick it out for years. That's one thing. The other thing is, like, there are going to be times when you have ideas for stuff, and your idea may not make sense at the moment, or people may not understand your idea today, or it may not even be ready to be created. But
yeah.
it doesn't mean it's a bad idea. And there are bad ideas. You got to figure out what they are and toss them aside quickly. But sometimes there is a seed planted in you that just needs time to figure out how to grow. That's the biggest thing. I'm in my 40s now, and I see businesses pop up all the time now that are based around some idea that I used to talk with my friends about while drinking beers around a campfire, or whatever it may be. Um, so I guess I would say to myself back then, it's like give things time and don't expect results immediately.
Yeah, this is amazing. I like
Hmm.
that one also.
Yeah,
So, my last question for you, Josh, and I was so happy. Time runs with you. I was so happy having you in ERP Talks. So, my last
thanks. I'm
question for
glad this
you.
worked out.
Yeah, thank you for accepting the invitation. So, my last question for you, when you are in a bad mood or feeling down, what do you do to lift yourself up?
For me, it's an easy answer. I have two young kids, and like
Yeah,
yeah, it's easy for me. I'll just spend time with my kids. So I kind of um, whenever I'm, not all the time, but 90% of the time when I'm with my kids, I'm with my kids. I'm with my wife. Like I don't, I
quality.
try really hard to avoid work when
Mm,
I'm in those environments.
yeah,
And I, to your point about everybody has stressful weeks. For me, the easiest way to get out of my head when it's appropriate is, yeah, just go sit down and play Roblox with my kids or watch a movie or go for a hike, get outside. That's my trick.
amazing. And I'm so glad for your kids that you are their father.
Hmm.
Yeah, they are lucky that they
Oh,
have you, and you are lucky that you have them. And it was very nice meeting you today, Josh. And I really wanted to meet you in person soon. I don't know, maybe we can see how we can do this in an event or summit or something, but I believe it will be very fun when we meet in person. I
all right.
really want that.
Sounds good. That'd be fun.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being with us in ERP Talks.
All right. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of ERP Talks. Remember, you can catch all our episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Occasionally, we also share episodes on YouTube and post short highlights on LinkedIn, so be sure to follow us on those platforms as well. If you're short on time, don't worry. We've got you covered with our newsletter, where we provide episode summaries straight to your inbox. Sign up and stay up to date with all the insights from our guests. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you in the next episode.